Dear viewer, I'm sorry to say that the video you are about to watch is extremely unpleasant. It tells a spoiler-filled tale of my experiences reading a series of unfortunate events featuring the orphans Violet, Klaus, and Sunny, and the nefarious Count Olaf dealing their fortune. This is one of the best series ever written, but there's nothing stopping you from watching something happier and spoiler-free, if you prefer that sort of thing.
Hello. That is my best Jim Carrey impression. Recently, I was lurking eBay, and I was looking actually originally for some Tanith Lee books that are out of print, but I did find a series of unfortunate events. And this is a book series that was really popular when I was growing up in the early aughts. And I read the first 2 or 3 of them. I've always wanted to finish the series. So I found the whole set, is what I'm saying. All 13 of them. And I thought, you know what? This is a great idea. This is going to be fun. Oh, this is like very nostalgic, actually. Dear reader, I'm sorry to say that the book you're holding in your hands is extremely unpleasant. It tells an unhappy tale about 3 very unlucky children. Even though they are charming and clever, the Baudelaire siblings lead their lives filled with misery and woe. From the very first page of this book, when the children are at the beach, they receive terrible news. Continuing on through the entire story, disaster lurks at their heels. One might say they're magnets for misfortune. In this short book alone, the 3 youngsters encounter a greedy and repulsive villain in itchy clothing. Oh no, they encounter itchy clothing. A disastrous fire, a plot to steal their fortune, and cold porridge for breakfast. It is my sad duty to write down these unpleasant tales, but there is nothing stopping you from putting this book down at once and reading something happy, if you prefer that sort of thing. Clearly I don't. They first come up to the house, and they see this really charming, lovely, most beautiful house on the block. They are so excited, and of course, it is not their house. It is their neighbor's house, just as Strauss. But then their eyes fall on their house, and I love this line. The entire building sagged to the side like a crooked tooth. My last check-in of the night. I'm gonna finish it tonight. It's only 150 or so pages, but he is so much worse from how I remember him, and I think actually is worse. Like, I think he's a worse guy than I was able to even recognize when I first read this book when I was 7 years old. Like, he hits Klaus and he threatens the baby. He's kind of a creep about Violet, and so are his friends. Like, he has this dinner party, and there's this guy that's like, oh, you're very pretty, aren't you? And then makes sort of like a joke / threat about ruining her face. He's a bad guy. That's all I have to say. And Poe, they went to Poe to like ask, can you help us get away from this man? And he's just like, what did he say? In loco parentis or something like that. Basically, he's like their acting parent, and he's not going to interfere. He can't interfere. I gotta say, I just feel so concerned for these children. Like, nobody is protecting them. Because at the end of the book, if you haven't read them, essentially what happens is Count Olaf is like, I want you to feel part of my family. Why don't you come join one of my theater performances? Violet will play the bride, and I will be the dude that marries the bride, the groom. And we'll have Justice Strauss, our neighbor, who's like an actual justice of the peace, conduct the wedding for the play. And Justice Strauss is like so excited about her big breakthrough. The kids know that he wants their money, and so they try and tell Justice Strauss, but she's like so up in her own mind of like, this is gonna be the first time I'm on stage, that she isn't gonna listen to them. So then they have to go through her entire library in order to try and figure out, can he actually marry Violet for real? Because if he can, which it turns out he can, at least in these books, then he can take control of her money, despite her being underage, like 14 years old. It's sick. And there are these things that Count Olaf says that I did not catch as a child that just makes him seem, first of all, so much more believable. Like, he's like, I'll just kill your 2 siblings, but I'll keep you as my beautiful bride. And then, like, Violet is thinking about, like, being his wife and, like, waking up next to him in the morning, going to sleep next to him in the morning. Like, we all know what this is kind of implying,
now as adults, but I did not catch that when I was a child. I caught that like this guy's really bad and I'm afraid for what's going to happen to these characters, but I was not getting all of the subtext. Anyway, the adults are pathetic, they're useless, and they're dumb. What a roller coaster. 150 pages of really trauma and drama. So that is book 1. I am going to start book 2. And there's some things that we are going to be keeping our eyes on in this book. I noticed in book 1, we kept having our attention drawn to the eye. This is his symbol of evil, the eye. He has the eye of Sauron fucking everywhere. I'm going to begin the reptile room, and I will let you know what happens. I'm so scared. I'm not sure if the child ever made it to the second book, whoever these belong to, because is that the sound of a book that's been opened? Appreciate the commitment to the glum mood with these dedications. One thing I did not mention in my last check-in is how incredibly like cozy and like fun and sweet and warm and comforting these books are in the few moments when the children actually find a happy place to be. Like Uncle Monty is actually a really decent guy. He cares about them. They're gonna help him with his work. They're going to Peru with him. Every night they like go for a cute movie together. It's a really sweet, lovely situation until he hires this guy to be their assistant on the trip. And this guy is Count Olaf. And the kids realize that immediately when he first comes to the door. He comes to them in like a Sherlock Holmes disguise with like a shaved eyebrow, or like he's shaved his unibrow thing and he's like grown a beard. And he's like, I'm not Count Olaf. I don't know who you're talking about. But it's totally him. And the kids like call him out on it repeatedly. And so finally he just drops the whole facade and he's like, yeah, I'm Count Olaf. What are you going to do about it? Tell your Uncle Monty? No, I'm going to cut your sister's toe off. So he doesn't, but they're like under threat because he's just walking around with this big fucking knife. And so the kids feel like they can't do or say anything about it. I forgot how awful he is, and it's so great. And so they try and tell Uncle Monty eventually, and then Monty is like, oh no, I think that he's probably trying to steal my snake, the incredibly deadly viper. So Monty has the incredibly deadly viper and he's gonna present it for the first time to all of the scientists with the snakes, but Count Olaf just ends up killing him by injecting him with snake venom, so it looks like something went terribly wrong with his snakes. And that happens like halfway through. I thought that Monty was gonna last way longer. So I don't remember this book at all.
What an icon.
That's something I love about this series, is that the children are actually smart. Like the adults are inexcusably, just unbelievably stupid. I'm enjoying the writing of this. In the end of this book, the children are able to prove that it is indeed Count Olaf by creating this diversion between Sunny and Klaus using their special skills and all of their knowledge. Sunny's great biting techniques to trick Olaf into revealing he actually knows a lot about snakes, and basically by exploiting Olaf's vanity. Meanwhile, Violet is procuring the final evidence from his suitcase using one of her little inventions. So really enjoyed this. I am already a third of the way into the wide window. I am having this real urge to make these characters in these places on The Sims. Like, they are such Sims tongue-in-cheek kind of clever little names, like Damocles Dock, Hazy Harbor. But I would have to actually download The Sims again to do this. I go through phases where I decide I want to play it, and then I decide that I don't want to play it, and I'm kind of done and tired of it, and then I read Unfortunate Events and I want to make the absolutely neurotic woman that they're living with, Aunt Josephine, who lives in this absolutely perilous house overlooking a lake. Her husband has been eaten by the leeches in the lake. The lore is that he ate lunch before he went for a swim, and that the leeches like smelled the food in him or something, and they ate him to death. And now she is absolutely terrified of absolutely everything, including the microwave, the fridge, the stove. Everything they eat is like chilled cucumber soup. It's miserable, but they're trying very hard to be grateful. But
Count Olaf shows up yet again in the form of Captain Sham, which is another thing that I find absolutely delightful and hilarious, because there are things that Lemony Snicket will explain, such as, this is the difference between literally and figuratively. But the Mamba du Mal, he doesn't explain what du mal means in French, but of course all of us who are probably adults or, you know, very clever children who speak French, which I was not, will catch these kind of funny little names that he's making. It almost feels like a Disney movie where they insert jokes for people at like multiple levels of knowledge or life experience. So that is where we are at.
My suspicions began about this Lemony Snicket guy on page 3 of the Reptile Room when he says, "The Grim River and the Horseradish Factory were only the first of a sequence of tragic and unpleasant episodes that bring a frown to my face and a tear to my eye whenever I think about them." Lemony seems like he is a little sus. He is actually somehow involved in the story, whether it is as a character or like he knew them, I don't know. So my first theory was actually that Lemony Snicket is Count Olaf. And I thought initially that it was Count Olaf because at the end of the Reptile Room he says that it is noted by the children that Olaf likes to talk about himself a lot. He's very vain. He likes to explain things. And Lemony Snicket does so much explaining in the book. Like, this means that, and that means that. And a lot of kind of very amusing and like very fun, but maybe pretentious or like vain kind of statements. I don't know. But then I read page 81 in Wide Window, and he says, "The youngsters were crying, of course, because they thought that Aunt Josephine was dead." Captain Sham called, by the way, and had like this phone call with her, and she sent the children away, and then they heard this window smash, and then the window in her library, it seems like she threw herself out of it with this very mysterious note with a lot of grammatical issues, which leaves them in the care of Captain Sham, who we know to be Count Olaf. But it says that, "And I wished that I had the power to go back and tell them that they were wrong. Of course, I cannot. I am not on top of that hill overlooking Lake Lachrymose on that glooming morning. I am sitting in my room in the middle of the night, writing down this story and looking out my window at a graveyard behind my home." The graveyard the Beatrice is buried in? I don't know. That tells me that Lemony Snicket is a person. Whether he comes to be relevant later on in the story or not, he is a person. So I just want to say, let it be stated for the record, Lemony Watch begins now. I must continue reading because it seems that there is now also a hurricane on the way. So eventually Klaus figures out that all of the grammatical errors in her suicide note left for the children is actually a clue to where she is hiding. They go to Curdle Cave, collect her, get on a boat, and begin crossing Lake Lachrymose again. But while they're on the lake, remember that the leeches are extremely hungry all the time, and if you have eaten right before you swim, they will come and get you, which is exactly what happens because Josephine ate a banana. So the leeches bust a hole in their boat. There's a hurricane coming. The children are rescued by Captain Sham, who kills Aunt Josephine and then is unveiled to be Count Olaf and escapes.
To Beatrice, my love flew like a butterfly until death swooped down like a bat. As the poet Emma Montana McElroy said, that's the end of that. Love it. I am several pages, I'm almost halfway actually, into this book. So the children have arrived at Lucky Smells Lumber Mill, which iconic name. They don't get any lunch, they get paid in coupons, and it is owned by a man who goes by the name of Sir because nobody can pronounce his name. I feel like at this point in the book, Snicket is leaning a little bit more into absurdism because the Sir is a man who is so engulfed in his cigar smoke that you can't even see his head. It's just like this body and cigar smoke. So they're working at this mill, and across the street there is this house that is shaped like an eye, and Klaus got tripped, he broke his glasses, and he went to this house which is an optometrist's office. He came back just not himself, not putting on his shoes, calling everybody sir when they talk to him.
Something very sus is going on. Also, I have created Snicket Watch. This is the board where I don't know how much use it's going to get, but I am going to start tracking who is Beatrice? Theories about Snicket. So I talked earlier about how I thought maybe he could be Olaf, but he talks about in this book about how he went into the mill after the Baudelaires were there and like interviewed people and like looked at it and stuff. So like, is he a journalist? That's my next working theory. He's too nice to be Olaf, so is he a journalist? But I'm gonna speed through and talk to you again in a few minutes. Okay, so each of these children has a skill, right? So Klaus is the bookish one that likes to read. He knows a lot of things about like spelling. He was the one that figured out the grammar stuff in the last book. Violet is the inventor. She's the one that comes up with the contraptions. She's the engineer in the family. And Sunny is the biter. She has these incredibly strong, ferociously sharp teeth. But what I love about this book is that the older children's roles are switched. Klaus was hypnotized, and so Violet had to turn to the books because he was like taken out of commission and figure out how to set him free, figure out like what his word was, because he kept trying to create these accidents in the mill so that they would be taken in by Shirley, Count Olaf, who was the assistant at the optometrist's office. And yeah, I just love that they had to like switch places a little bit. Definitely, I feel like this is leaning in a little bit more to some of the absurdism and like the humor of it, because Sunny has a sword fight with somebody with her ferociously sharp teeth. I don't understand how that works, but it's hilarious. In the end, the villains escape and they are once again in the power of Mr. Poe, who has told them that he just doesn't have time for this kind of shit anymore. He needs to get these children into somewhere that is stable so he can go back and work at the bank, because money is so important to him. That's why the children have now gone to the austere academy. I read the first couple of pages of this one. We're not very far yet. However, I have something to add to the board, because just here at the end of Chapter 2, Snicket says, "So as I hide out here in this mountain cabin and write the words he, and you, wherever you are hiding out, read the words he, should know that he stands for the worst sound the Baudelaires have ever heard." Not much of a clue, but he's in a mountain cabin. Maybe it's relevant. Maybe. Okay. Also, the Beatrice note is not particularly helpful in terms of clues, but my God, they're good. They're fabulously morbid. So I'm really curious about this book because it's going to be the first time that we've actually seen the Baudelaires interact with other children. So far, they seem absolutely horrible. They are staying in the orphan's shack, which is full of crabs and mold and weird things that are not a very comfortable situation. Sucks to be them, as usual. Okay, I think we have another clue. Klaus looked down. "I can't," he said. "That book belonged to my father. It was destroyed in a fire." "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. "Our parents died in a fire as well." And then later on, these two children who invited them to come and stay, the Quagmires, said that there used to be 3 of them, but they had a 3rd sibling who also died in a fire. So I'm not going to recap the entire plot, but basically Count Olaf almost captured the Baudelaires. They got away by the skin of their teeth, but Olaf took their friends, the Quagmires. Just as Duncan Quagmire is about to be shoved into the car, he says, "Look in the..." Too much excitement going on here. He says, "Look in the notebooks." "VFD," Duncan screamed. But the other woman's powdery hand covered his mouth before he could continue. "What?" Claus asked. Duncan shook his head vigorously and freed himself from the woman's hand just for one moment. "VFD," he managed to scream. And that was the last that Klaus heard. And then they basically shove them in the car and drive off with the Quagmire children. What the fuck is a VFD? V.F.D. Time to add it to the board. I need to do other things today, and I don't know how I'm gonna manage, because I can't stop thinking about this, because we got hints or clues about Beatrice as well. Snicket really revealed a lot about himself and like events, like alluding to events without giving us the full details. So he
described a story where he was like infiltrating a ball and there was a woman in a dragonfly dress, Beatrice, and I think this is the first time that they met. I can't remember now. But he followed her there because he had a message for her about Count Olaf. It is so dirty. He's like, and I told her, Beatrice, Count Olaf is... Oh, I can't bear to go on. It's such a devastating, sad, painful memory for me. And I'm like, dude, tell me. And now we need to know about the VFD. So we know that Beatrice is dead. She's married to another man. Did Olaf kill her? Also, I feel like a bit of a dummy. I realized just now there are little messages at the back of the books from Snicket that kind of hints at the next book that's coming. So I imagine when you were a kid reading these, it would have been so much fun to kind of like get a glimpse of all of these little clues. This one says, to my kind editor, please excuse this ridiculously fancy stationery. I am writing to you from 667 Dark Avenue. And this paper is the only one that is available in the neighborhood. Something about a train, something about one of Jerome's neckties, and a small photograph of the Veblen Hall, bottle of parsley soda, which sounds appalling, and the doorman's coat. The ASOUE elevator, ladies and gentlemen. With an elegant gesture, Esme handed a bag to each Baudelaire. I thought if I bought you something you really wanted, you might stop all this chatter about the quagmires. What Esme means, Jerome added hurriedly, is that we want you to be happy here in our home, even if you're worried about your friends. No, that's not what I mean at all. Esme said, but never mind, open the bag, kids. That pretty much sums up what their guardians are like. They are staying with the Squallers, who are the most Dickensian characters yet. And the Squallers are super, super rich. Esme loves to talk about how she is the like 6th or 8th most important financial advisor in the entire city, and they live in this incredible penthouse right up on the 48th or 84th floor. And she is absolutely obsessed with what is in and what is out. So she's constantly changing things around in her house and sending Jerome on these like kind of ridiculous errands to go get things that are in, like parsley soda. And currently the elevators are out, so nobody is using the elevators. The children have so far been really, of course, preoccupied with where are their friends, how are they doing when they're in Count Olaf's clutches, what is he gonna do to them? We don't know. Poe is like, I'm looking for him. Now, a few books ago, Snicket mentioned that he was in a mountain cabin, and now, at the end of chapter 6, I think, he mentions that he's locked up in jail. But that's all we got, so I really don't know what to think of that. Beyond the children's speculation, there's also no updates so far on the VFD. I've been trying to guess, like, what could that stand for? And I have no idea. My prediction is that it will be either something that is going to be so ridiculously obvious that I will be embarrassed not to have gotten it, or it will be kind of out of the blue and absurd and we don't even know yet. At the moment, all I can think about is VPD, which is the Vancouver Police Department, and I'm like, this is not set in Vancouver, so I don't know what that is. I don't know. I have no real substantive guesses. Oh my god. Esme's in cahoots with Olaf. Some catching up is required. So basically in the top floor where they're living, there is an additional elevator shaft that they didn't see anywhere else on any of the other descending floors, because they have to walk up through every single flight of stairs because the elevator is out. And they wondered like, what is Olaf doing? Because right now he went into the apartment to visit with Esme before we knew they were in cahoots. But he didn't come out of the apartment, according to the doorman. So we know that he was somewhere in the apartment. He stayed there. So the Baudelaires figured out this additional elevator is actually, doesn't have an elevator in it. It is a secret passage. Secret passage. Okay, so they follow the secret passage under the street, through the darkness, until there is a trap door at the very end of the place, of the tunnel. And then they open up the trap door and they come out and they are in the ruins of their burned down mansion. There are so many things that are now implicated in this. I'm so into it. If you can't tell, I am so invested in this book series. I can't function. So Esme is in cahoots with Olaf, as I have said like 10 times now. She is in cahoots. She is one of his cronies. She has a secret passage to their house, right outside of her apartment door, to the site where their house mysteriously burned down. Did Olaf burn down their house, their mansion? Of course he did. This suddenly makes so much sense. He burned it down so that he could try and take custody of the children and take their fortune. Oh my god. I have like 30 pages left or something. And they still have to save the Quagmires. I am truly, genuinely shocked that a middle grade series can have me by the throat like this. Like, I have not felt this way about anything that I've read for so long. Okay, maybe almost Gormenghast, but like, no words. I have no words, okay? So this book was such a tease. We got like 1 or 2 answers, but then it opened up just so many more questions. And I have no idea what's going on. Everything came to a head in one of the inn auctions that Esme was attending, and Count Olaf was the like auctioneer who's pretending he's like German or something like that. They were convinced that the Quagmires were in lot number 50, VFD. So when they brought the box out, they were in this like battle, not voting, what is it? Giving, like balloting their money. And Sunny gave a huge amount of her money that she earned in her last book being a secretary for the principal crazy guy. And so they finally got the box, but then when they opened it, it was a red herring. And so we have no answers. And the children were actually secretly in a giant red herring sculpture that, of course, Count Olaf and Esme made off with, cackling into fucking who knows where. These books always end with this really sweet moment between the characters where they're like, oh, we will always have each other no matter what. And it makes this book so cozy. Like, I don't really connect with a lot of cozy books or fiction, but these ones are cozy in like a very sad, despairing way, which apparently is my vibe. So even though Esme has taken off, Jerome is like, I'll take care of you. I care about you. I want to be your guardian. And then they're like, okay, we have to look for the Quagmires then. And then he's like, oh, you know what? No, I was thinking like cozy beachside cottage with no Olaf present, please. And they said, no, we really need the Quagmires. And then he just said, maybe you should go live with someone else then. Gut punch. Okay, listen to this. Good luck. Jerome reached the end of the block and turned left, and the Baudelaires were alone once again in the world. Violet sighed and stared down at the street, the direction Olaf escaped. I hope my inventing skills don't fail me, she said, because we're going to need more than good luck to rescue the Quagmire triplets. Klaus sighed and stared down at the street in direction of the ashy remains of their first home. I hope my research skills don't fail me, he said, because we're going to need more than good luck to solve the mystery of the hallway in the Baudelaire mansion. Sunny sighed and watched as a lone doily blew down the stairs. Bite, she said, and by that she meant she hoped that her teeth wouldn't fail her, because they'd need more than good luck to discover what VFD really stood for. Baudelaires looked at one another with faint smiles. They were smiling because they didn't think Violet's inventing skills would fail, or any more than Klaus's research skills would fail or Sunny's teeth. But the children also knew that they wouldn't fail each other as Jerome had failed them, and as Poe was failing them now as he dialed the wrong number and was talking to a Vietnamese restaurant instead of the police. No matter how many misfortunes had befallen them, and no matter how many ersatz things they would encounter in the future, the Baudelaire orphans knew that they would rely on one another for the rest of their lives, and this at least felt like one thing in the world that was true. I am not a crier, but like, okay, maybe I am a crier, but like, so the next book is The Vile Village. And oh my god, this is so stupid. This is only book 7. These books are the only thing that matters in my life right now. Last check-in was all feelings and no thoughts, but I am halfway-ish through the Austere Academy at the moment, and I thought that I should actually verbalize some of my theories, specifically around Beatrice. So we know that Snicket was in love with Beatrice. We know that he was trying to warn her about Count Olaf. We know that she married another man, and we know that she's dead. I slept on it, and I woke with a question. Is Beatrice their mother? So if Olaf burned down their house, then what Count Olaf shouted Beatrice, Count Olaf, is maybe that there's like, maybe, that's really all I have to say is maybe she is their mother. That is my working theory at the moment. I haven't really got a clue. That's the working theory. But the Vile Village, I was really excited about this one just because I really love the cover. Essentially, Mr. Poe is like, okay, it takes a village to raise children, and there's this new program going on where villages will take care of children. The children are now really focused on VFD. We still haven't found the Quagmires. They think that if they track down VFD, they're going to figure out where the Quagmires are. And so they pick the town that has VFD as the name on this great long list of towns. Oh my god, I feel like I just found a gem. I looked down and it says, I think it says Homework Pass, 2 nights with a signature. It just fell out of the book as I was waving it around. The back is just yellow. So obviously these books were read at some point, and whoever was reading it didn't get past chapter 8 because that seems like it was where it was hiding. But the children have pretty much found out that VFD is not the name of whatever it is the name of. It is a coincidence, and this town is just super obsessed with crows. They're living with the handyman, who's actually a very nice man who is kind of subverting a lot of the rules. Everyone in the town is obsessed with rules, and whenever somebody breaks the rules, like having machinery or like books in a library or whatever, they're like, burn them at the stake. And so what has just happened was a man entered the village who has a single eyebrow and an ankle tattoo, but it is not Olaf. The children know that immediately, but based on the description, the villagers think it is Olaf, and there's a very, very strict rule about no villains allowed in the village. So they don't call authorities. Instead, they are going to burn him at the stake. But the man is found mysteriously dead before they can even do that. And the crows seem to also be dropping notes or something from the children. But yeah, not a whole lot has happened. Like, I'm quite a ways into the book and we haven't seen Olaf yet. So I've got to say, I think this is in some ways my least favorite so far, but that's very much relative because I'm still really enjoying it. But I'm gonna finish it up and hopefully we will get some more information on VFD, Beatrice, whatever. Oh, also the guy that was killed is named Jacques.
It may take a village to raise a child, but it only takes one to inherit a fortune. The villain laughed aloud and rude laugh and began to shut the door. But I don't want to be cruel. I'll let you three decide who gets the honor of spending the rest of their life with me and who gets to burn at the stake.
Wasn't sure if I was gonna look like I got caught in the rain. Actually, it's not too bad, but we have things to update on. I actually really enjoyed this book a lot. So Olaf appears very, like, pretty much on the moment that we discover that the guy Jacques has been killed. He is coming in as like a Poirot-esque kind of detective who is immediately trying to frame the Baudelaires as the murderers of this Jacques guy. I think this is like the third time in a row that Olaf has pretended to be a foreigner, which I think is a little bit funny. Like, we had a little bit of a lesson on what xenophobia was before, because he was wearing a turban to cover his eyebrow, right? And he would refuse to take it off for religious reasons. And people were like, children, oh, that is so horrible of you to, you know, be prejudiced against people who are not from your country. That's called xenophobia. Yeah, so now he is like Detective Dupont. Whereas the children in prison, they obviously figure out how to escape, as well as discover that the Quagmires were hidden in a fountain. These poor children have been trapped in so many like little claustrophobic areas. Oh my god. But we learned something pretty interesting here. The guy who was killed is called Jacques Snicket. Snicket. That didn't get lost on me. So we can add this to, I don't even know where to like put this. Is this under VFD? Beatrice theories? It's gonna go in the random list of things that feel like they're probably relevant. So at the end of this book, the Quagmires escape with the handyman in this floating giant hot air balloon that is like got bedrooms in it. And then the Baudelaires aren't able to escape with them because of reasons. So the Quagmires throw down their notebooks and stuff, because they're both, like, one's a poet and the other one is a journalist, or, you know, they aspire to be, right? And so they've been documenting everything while they've been held captive by Count Olaf, and they've been taking notes about everything. They've, like, pulled together information about the VFD, and they give the kids the books. But naturally, we are being fed like quarter teaspoons of information here. So obviously somebody like shoots a freaking harpoon and like destroys most of the books. Then they screamed down, "Volunteer!" on my board. I have my note about Jacques.
You can't really spell Jacques very well, even though I was just reading it.
V, I'm assuming, means volunteer. Spell that. And then we still need to figure out FD. So I guess I have to continue reading the hostile hospital. This is the most terrifying of all of them to me, like in terms of the picture. Because Klaus is there with a knife that looks serrated, like a bone saw kind of thing. Olaf, and then the hook-fingered man or whatever. Who's in the bed? Has to be Violet and or Sunny. Terrifying. I hate like medical stuff. Squicks me out really fast and really easily. Also at the moment, so the children are still kind of at large because they have allegedly killed or assassinated Count Olaf because of Olaf's scheming. And so everybody seems to believe that Olaf is dead and that the children did it. And this is the first book that ended without Mr. Poe coming and being there. I'm curious if they're going to actually go back into Mr. Poe's care, or if like we're on our own like delinquents now.
Volunteers fighting disease? No, I don't think so.
Hello, like 10 minutes later, I also just forgot to rave about the way that the author, I should find out what his real name is using these books to talk about important things, like not just about how negligent and like shitty adults can be, but also things like mob mentality. And how, like, because in the last book, mob mentality was like a very big part of it, and like the kids had to like kind of learn how to manipulate that a little bit. But then in this one, like right off the bat, they're talking about this newspaper that is now reporting on their being wanted, and how everybody believes that the Daily Punctilio never would get anything wrong because it's a newspaper, and those are always completely 100% accurate, unbiased, and reliable. And yeah, I think that is hilarious because the children know that it is inaccurate because it keeps referring to Count Olaf as Count Omar and has given them incorrect and very silly names as well. So kudos to you, Mr. Author.
So no surprise to anybody, Mr. Poe is absolutely useless. He doesn't respond to the children when they try and contact him from the store, so they get into a van with the volunteers fighting for disease. They essentially, through a van, begin assisting with the records library within the hospital. And something very interesting is mentioned here, because it seems like there's all kinds of records. It's not just like medical records, because there was supposed to be a file on the Baudelaires and their fire, but instead they find out that there are some files called the Snicket files, which detail a fire that occurred, and the Baudelaires seem like they may have been mentioned. What's more is that it hints that there may have been a survivor of the fire that is mentioned in the Snicket files. The children think this means that one of their parents may have survived. I don't think so. I think this is going to be about Lemony Snicket and Jacques Snicket, that like there was somebody else with them maybe that survived the fire. Like there's this whole other story that seems to be unfolding, and I just don't know what it is yet. But I'm gonna just mention Snicket file. That's the update.
It has been confirmed that Beatrice knew Esme Squalor. They met. I'm really thinking that Beatrice might be their parent or an aunt, although I'm not completely certain. Also, Snicket stole a sugar bowl from Esme Squalor. What's in the sugar bowl? What is the sugar bowl? Is it a sugar bowl? Confirm.
We have found a photograph of Snicket, Jock Snicket, and their parents together in front of the Baudelaire mansion, so we know that they are all connected somehow, probably through VFD, but I'm actually a little confused because I don't know if this VFD thing is a good thing or a bad thing. Like, is it a Count Olaf thing or their parents and potentially Jacques Snicket thing? What is the thing? What is it? But there's another person in the photograph that I am wondering if it is Lemony Snicket, because we don't know who he is or like what his relationship is, and it's just like there was a shadowy figure partially turn the camera. So I'm thinking the Snickets, whoever these people are definitely involved somehow. Almost done the book, flying through. So basically Olaf appeared as we would expect. His girlfriend, Esme Squalor, which I love that this creepy, slimy guy has this girlfriend that's like high fashion and has these stiletto heels with like literal stilettos on the point of her heel. Oh, it's so good. But he has essentially kidnapped Violet, put her under, and they're in this hospital, right? Basically, we're confirming. This is from the POV of Violet. She's like waking up and seeing them, right? And he's announcing over the, what's it called, PA system thing, that there will be a cranioectomy performed with a knife. And Klaus and Sunny are like, oh no, we gotta save her. So they dress up as doctors and they're like, we're here to assist. And they go in. The hook-handed man is there, right? And he's like, you guys, thinking that it's the powdered-faced women, are gonna be like performing the removal of her head. And they go into the operating theater and let me just show you. So they go into the operating theater and there's like a bunch of people watching, like as if they're gonna learn how to do an operation, I guess. I don't know. It's taking operating theater and like making it literal. And so Klaus is stalling until they can think of something, and he's explaining all of this stuff he remembers reading about surgical tools he had read while he was 11. Early knives have been found in Egyptian tombs and Mayan temples.
That the most frightening part of any beast is its belly.
I think it might be a bit too windy to really talk too much, but... Okay, I just got dive bombed by a parrot and not attacked by a dog. He was very friendly, but like enthusiastically greeted by a dog I did not see at the same time. But what I was trying to say is that you could tell Tim Curry is having so much fun with the narration, especially of Olaf and his cronies, and it's just so good. That's my check-in. Okay, it was a beautiful day to just go for a walk. I needed to get out of the house. I'm so glad that I picked up the audiobook from the library because I'm really, really enjoying it. But I have some thoughts, or there's some things about this book in particular that I find really interesting because I think that it feels a little bit dated. So they arrive in the circus in the back of Count Olaf's car and they get hired at this carnival. I guess it's a carnival. And they are disguising themselves as freaks. So Violet and Klaus like share an outfit and they put like a lot of fur on the baby, and the baby is like wolf baby and they're like somebody who has two heads. I don't think that this would have been done in the same way if it was written today. Like, he's trying to make the point that the other freaks that they join are being like unfairly alienated, and it's ridiculous how they're being treated, and Violet and Klaus are like having a lot of empathy for these other people. But yeah, the word freak is just used so much and it kind of bothers me. Like, I realize this is a dated book, but I mean, most of the series has aged really well. But one thing that I have to also note that hasn't aged as well is there is one of Olaf's cronies who is described as like not looking like a man or a woman, like, and like the lack of adherence to the sort of gender norms and how they present themselves is like constantly mentioned as that way of identifying that character, and that is like part of their evilness. That character comes up a lot. So I mean, most of this story is great. There are some things that, you know what, when you read it, you can see that
as a society, we might approach things very differently now. So I am probably around 40% of the way through, and I'm gonna just continue on with the audiobook. But Count Olaf has just purchased a bunch of very hungry lions. I am concerned somebody is gonna get eaten.
What's it doing underneath the tablecloth? Violet asked. It doesn't seem important to me, Klaus said, but I guess it was important enough to Lulu that she hid it.
So the con has been conned. The owner of the circus is a woman who is named Madame Lulu. She has been doing like fortune telling and predicting and telling Olaf where she can find, or where he can find the Baudelaires. And so Olaf has gone to the carnival. That's like the whole reason that he's there. He has like face blindness too, where Violet like just took her hair ribbon off, and then Klaus took his glasses off, and then they put on the same shirt, and he's like, I have no idea who you are. I have no idea. This is like the same thing as when you read a romance novel and they go to a masquerade ball and you have like a mask that's covering like this much of your face, and you're like, this person is a mystery to me. I have no idea, and I suddenly do not recognize their voice at all. Amazing. Anyway, Lulu is a fake. She just asks everybody to close their eyes while she's making her predictions, and then quickly whips up the tablecloth and like starts reading news articles or something like that to them to give them the information that they were looking for. Essentially, she's just well informed. Okay, theory time. I think Lulu is gonna die via lion. There's just no way she's getting out of this alive. She seems to have a lot of compassion for the Baudelaires because she understands that, like, by telling Olaf, she has actually been making their lives really hard and he wants to kill them. So she has a lot of guilt. And she also knows about VFD. She said they're in the mountains, but we don't know yet what it stands for. But they just had this really interesting conversation. Klaus is like, I don't understand if the VFD is good or bad, because it seems like good people are involved in it, and also seems like bad people are involved in it, and like, what is it? What's going on here? And she's like, well, you know, some people can use good things for bad purposes, and it's not always straight cut. And I'm like, that's right, Lulu. That is like some good wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in these books. He took Sunny. I grabbed the book to see if that was really it, if that was really all it is. They are trying to escape in a caravan. Lulu did die. And there is like a hill, and they were like attached by a rope, and it got cut. And then Sunny was in the car with Olaf, and then they were in the caravan, and they slid backwards, and Olaf sped up ahead, and he's like cackling off into the distance. This is the first book that has not ended with the Baudelaires are at least together. They have each other, if nothing else. In some ways, I think the series is almost getting steadily darker. Like, there was a moment in this where the Baudelaires are wearing their disguises and they're realizing that they aren't themselves, and they don't really feel like themselves anymore. It's been a really long time since they have, partly because of the grief, but also partly because the circumstances they have been in have forced them to do things they normally wouldn't. Like, these kids are so polite, but increasingly there's been a really interesting thing in the last two books where they have had to tell a lie, and especially Violet or Klaus have like a little twist of discomfort in their belly as they are misleading people. And I'm finding that kind of curious how that is going to continue to develop. Like, they are becoming, I mean, not really gray, they're behaving in a very understandable and reasonable way still compared to what they're facing. I appreciate that this is showing that there are times when you need to protect yourself. But yeah, where are we at for VFD? We know they're in the Mortmain Mountains. We know that Olaf is going there with Sunny next. We don't know what VFD means or stands for, and we know that it's more complicated than them being good or bad. And we also know that we only have 4 books left to find out. We're going to the VFD now, like we're physically going there, so. Fate is like a strange, unpopular restaurant filled with odd waiters who bring you things that you never asked for and don't always like. Once again, that is a painfully accurate description. Also, Esme is horrible and my favorite character. I wish the baby orphan would stop that irritating crying. Nothing spoils a nice car ride like a whiny kidnapping victim. I'm pinching her as often as I can, Esme's squalor said, and gave Sunny another pinch with her stylish fingernails, but she still won't shut up. I just learned what VFD actually stands for. Volunteer Fire Department. I feel like I should have figured that out just because of how close I was with Vancouver Police Department. Like, that's not very close, but I had the department part. He gave me a volunteer and they were talking about fire so much, I should have figured it out. So we are getting so much information. The kids have found the VFD headquarters that are now in the mountains, but then this kind of mysterious couple appeared to Count Olaf, who said that they essentially burned down the VFD headquarters. So when the kids get there, it's already burnt out, but we're slowly starting to get information from Quigley Quagmire, who is one of the Quagmire triplets that we thought was dead previously. Presumably, he is that one survivor that they were talking about before. But we find out that there was a schism in the VFD, and I'm assuming that VFD doesn't just put out fires, but what they are definitely doing now is starting them. So Olaf used to be part of the VFD. The eye used to be the symbol of the VFD. What exactly is going on here? Because it also sounds a bit like there was a third Snicket child as well, and the Snicket's house might have burnt down. There's something funny going on. It's like we have a story within a story, and this sets of 3 children, whether they're triplets or not, keep appearing in the book, and I just don't know. Like, I hope there is going to be a point in the book where we're explained exactly what is all going on, because I'm trying to keep track, but my gosh, it is really getting messy. Just an update on some of our theories and where we're at. VFD, Volunteer Fire Department, Schism, Baudelaires, Monty Quagmires, and possibly a lot more people were in that schism. But on the other side of the schism, we have the people setting fires. That is Olaf and Esme and the cronies as well. We have a sugar bowl, which I don't really know what to make of this. So the sugar bowl has come up in multiple different books. I think it started in the ersatz elevator, and it keeps popping up, and we don't know what's in the sugar bowl, but we know that it was stolen from Esme Squalor and that this might become very relevant and important later. We still don't know what's in the Snicket files, I don't think, and I am still holding that Beatrice is their mother. I cannot think of any other explanation or woman who could possibly be involved. Lemony constantly has these little asides. I'm finished this book, by the way, where he will mention, like, offhandedly, like he did before, he's in a mountain cabin or he's in prison. So we know that there is some element of story that we're slowly being fed throughout this, but I'm not sure, because there's so much information. I feel like we're getting some red herrings. I feel like not all of it is necessarily going to be relevant, and it's really hard to track every tiny little clue and hint throughout the entire series. A lot of things happened in this book. Violet and Quigley Quagmire kissed. I think it's implied that they kissed on the slippery slope, and Sunny is starting to use more words. But what I really love about Sunny is that she was captured by Olaf, right, in the end of the carnival. So Violet discovers where they are, and she goes up to Sunny and she's like, you need to come with me, like, I'm here to rescue you. And Sunny is like, well, you know what, I'm here and I might be able to find out where the VFD's alternate headquarters are so that we can actually go and find them, because Olaf seems to know. I'll stay as a spy. But to say all of that, she just says Matahari, and Snicket will then interpret it as Violet understands it, which is, let me stay behind and spy. So Sunny will like pick up these like really sophisticated words or make these sort of allusions to history or pop culture that I feel like most children may not know about. But if you're an adult reading this book, you're like, oh, I see what you did there. I feel like he put so much effort into writing each one of these books. Like, every little bit of information, everything that is dropped feels like it's intentional, just like that. Yeah, I enjoyed this book a lot. I think that it's interesting because you're really seeing the children develop a little bit more. I feel like the alternate title to this book is The Slippery Slope to Wickedness, because we're seeing more and more that they are having kind of ethical struggles or like moral struggles about what they should do as they're put under more pressure. They came up with this like trap for Esme Squalor, and they really like almost went through with it until the last minute they changed their minds. And I'm really curious where this aspect of the book is going. Like, are we going to end the series with the Baudelaires doing something that is truly devious? Because we know they're not really going to be free of Count Olaf unless he's dead. Finish this book with the Baudelaires sliding down the slippery slope on a toboggan. They lose Quigley Quagmire in the escape, and I'm assuming that the book is going to continue to pick up from that point. Thank God we got rid of Mr. Poe. That's the other thing I want to say. Like, I do not miss that man. Hello. Oh, we almost match. I just thought that I should quickly check in on my reading progress. I've just finished chapter 8, so I'm like more than halfway through. This one is my least favorite so far. It's okay.
Where are you going?
Nowhere. So basically, the Baudelaires slid down the slippery slope and they got picked up by a submarine with an incredibly irritating captain named Captain Wittershins and his niece. I think it's his niece, Fiona, who's a mycologist. I'm not sure if it's just that this isn't my taste, the type of humor, or it's like just the fact that I am 30 years old and this is targeting somebody like less than half my age, but I just found like him super irritating. He's like, I. He just doesn't stop saying I. But we did get rid of him recently, a few chapters ago, and we're just kind of puttering along. I don't know. I don't have any strong thoughts or feelings. To be honest, this feels a little bit like filler to me. Something I did not expect from this book is that Fiona had a long-lost brother, and it's the hook-handed man. Did not expect that. So I love that Olaf and Esme have kind of adopted Carmelita Spatz, who was a kid from the austere academy. She's like a little bully and like I'm a perfect little princess kind of character. Very, very irritating. And Esme and her, you kind of see them bullying Olaf a little bit. Like Esme will be like, oh, tell her this, darling. And Carmelita's like, yeah, tell me this. Then Olaf will be like, yes, you're a perfect princess. So even though it is filler, we have a few good quotes here as well. The way sadness works is one of the strangest riddles of the world. If you are stricken with a great sadness, then you might feel as if you've been set aflame, not only because of the enormous pain, but also because your sadness may spread over your life like smoke from an enormous fire. You might find it difficult to see anything but your own sadness, the way smoke can cover a landscape so that all anyone can see is black. You may find that happy things are tainted with sadness the way smoke leaves ashen colors and scents on everything it touches. And you may find that if someone pours water all over you, you are damp and distracted but not cured of your sadness, the way a fire department can douse a fire but never recover what has been burned down. That is such an accurate, unbelievably accurate description. Like, I feel like this book has quotes that I will think about for the rest of my life about difficult things and the way that they affect you. So our narrator friend Snicket mentions that he has a sister named Kit. And at the very end of this book, we think that we're gonna go meet Quigley Quagmire on Briny Beach where it all began. And I just love the way that this ended. Whatever I had to say about the middle and the beginning, the end was fantastic. So they use poetry to solve a secret code from Quigley. They're expecting that he's gonna meet them on Briny Beach, but when they get there, they meet Mr. Poe. And the way it's described is like Poe emerging from the mist, just like he does in the very first book on like the first few pages. And they're like, we're back at the beginning. Like, we cannot do this again. Because Poe is like, well, here you are. Someone with the initials, I think JT something, told him that he needs to go there. So we don't know who that person is. But then they were like, no, we're not doing this. And they realized that actually they're supposed to get in a taxi that's waiting on the side of the beach. So they like run and they're like, Quigley! And get in the taxi and there's a woman there wearing a black jacket, buttoned up to her neck, white gloves that they've never seen before. And she says, hi Baudelaires, I'm Kit Snicket. Oh my god. Also, Klaus had a little brief romance in this, but like I didn't care for it. It didn't hit for me. It was with that Fiona girl, and she was kind of slimy because she ended up sort of betraying them in the end, and I just didn't like her. And I didn't think it was necessary, like most of the things that happened in this book, but it got us to where we needed to go. Book 11. Oh my god. So now, you guys, it is the penultimate peril. The Baudelaires look like they are doormen. I don't know. Actually, the faces on this cover are so good. Do you see that? Amazing. I just read the dedication. Actually, I thought the dedication was great in this one too. In this one, it says, for Beatrice, dead women tell no tales. Sad men write them down. Like, okay, buddy. For Beatrice, no one could extinguish my love or your house. Oh my god. Hello. Okay, real quick check-in. I am a few chapters in. They are currently working at the hotel. That is what we were expecting based on the cover. Kit is pregnant. And I have theories about this, and I just want to lay them down right now. I think the baby daddy is either Count Olaf or the Baudelaire father. Now, I know this is a children's story, but who actually knows what is going to happen? But I just feel like that's going to be a big reveal. Who is the baby daddy of Kit's baby? Okay, this is actually turning out to be so much fun because everybody is now in the denouement hotel. Like, everybody who is from all of the books before, they're all there, the good and the bad. The VFD members are trying to convince the Baudelaires that, like, no, they're good. All of the noble people are going to come and they're going to, like, put Count Olaf and his cronies on trial. But Count Olaf has, like, a scheme too, and he's also there for a purpose. Obviously, he's going to try and, like, steal the sugar bowl. We still don't know what that is. And he has brought in all of his cronies. I just have to say one more time, I really hate that the circus freaks joined Olaf, and I feel like they kind of immediately lost all of their depth. Like, I don't like that very much. I think we have Justice Strauss back. We have, his name is Charles from the Mill. Like, everybody. Anyway, everybody is back. And, like, obviously things are not going to work out, but there's, like, so many things being dropped here and there about their parents maybe were not totally noble. Count Olaf is like, why don't you tell the children what happened at the opera? We have more triplets. The denouements are now triplets, and, like, some of them are bad. One of them is good. He owns the hotel. There's a secret library under the hotel that has all of these records of every evil thing Olaf has ever done. And there was a hint that a weapon was used to kill Olaf's parents. Like, Olaf was an orphan too. There's so many questions, and I'm wondering if we're gonna get answers to them all. Forcing myself to stop here, it's very difficult. This series is one of the best in the world. I am convinced now. So he always does these kind of absurdist play on word kind of things, because there's the saying, the blind leading the blind, and, like, justice is blind. And so, of course, this whole court case that now the Baudelaires were framed for the murder of this Dewey guy, and they're being, like, put on trial by Justice Strauss and, like, everybody else in the hotel, along with Count Olaf, to see who is truly innocent. Olaf is like, I am innocent. You spell innocent, O-L-A-F. That was, like, his whole defense. But of course, because everybody is blindfolded, Olaf is just, like, gonna take his blindfold off and take Justice Strauss hostage without anybody realizing, because all the adults are stupid. And the Baudelaires realize what's happening, and they are like, you guys, no, we have to peek. And then they're like, this is happening, this horrible villain. And then they're like, you're in contempt of the law because you took your blindfold off. And all of these blind people are, like, leading each other around trying to serve justice, but, like, nobody's actually listening to the truth. It's so funny. It's so accurate. It's so accurate. Why is it accurate? Olaf, Justice Strauss, and the Baudelaires are all running downstairs to get the sugar bowl, right? And Olaf and Sonny is like, you're gonna fail. And Olaf turns around and he says, your mother told me the same thing. Ha! But one day, when I was 7 years old, and then the elevator doors slide open and break him off. And I'm just like, we have one book left. What happened? What is going on? I don't know. Oh, okay, so now where things are at currently, I'm at chapter 12. We have pages left, pages. And the Baudelaires started to help Olaf. Because this whole book, they've been running around trying to figure out who is noble or, like, good, who is evil or, like, bad, and questioning which side they're on along with everybody else. And, like, is it possible to even be completely good or completely bad? And, like, what are they even good anymore because of some of the decisions that they have been making? And now I'm loving this so much. I'm eating it up so much because Violet is like, okay, everybody's looking for us because we're in contempt of court because we took our blindfolds off. We need to escape. Take us with you in this, I think he's gonna leave in, like, a hot air balloon kind of thing. And Sonny is like, guys, wait, before we leave, we need to start a fire. And bit the hand of justice. The last few scenes of this book are honestly amazing because it feels almost cinematic in, like, a TV show where you have that final glimpse of all of these characters that you love and or hate.
most of them actually like you hate. And you could just tell that this is us saying goodbye, because Olaf and Baudelaire's are in this elevator going to the roof to make their escape. And the Baudelaires try and slow him down because they're trying to stop him from like releasing this very murderous killer mushroom thing from the other books. And they hit every single button, so the doors like open on every single floor, and you get like a glimpse of like some of the characters that you've seen and how they're all bumbling around wearing blindfolds. It's so symbolic because a lot of them have been kind of doing that this entire series. And they're doing the same shit. Like, Poe is just not listening to them. He's bumbling around wearing a blindfold and coughing and not actually paying attention to what is important and what the Baudelaires have been trying to tell him, which is, now there is a fire and you need to leave. And Esme is wearing a blindfold and Carmelita is with her, being like Esme Jr. And she's only thinking about like what's fashionable and like what is important to like her in her like small version of the world. I'm gonna miss her the most. I think she's like the evil girlfriend. Every time it would say the evil girlfriend. I love it. And then we saw Charles and Sir, and they're holding hands. Are they actually partners? Like, when I first read the book, it was like they're partners. I was like, okay, they're like business partners, and they are, but I think they're like also partners, you know, because they had matching pajamas on, which feels partnery to me. But I think Charles could really do a lot better. Yeah, it's just such a, like, I don't know if I've ever read a scene like that before that managed to kind of say goodbye and like show all of the characters as they truly are for your last image. Oh yeah, and then even Justice Strauss, like right up to the last minute, she's gonna come with the Baudelaires. Like, she's the only one who is actually able to kind of see how villainous and terrible Count Olaf truly is, but she's not willing to come with the Baudelaires or continue to protect them or do anything. She chooses to stay behind because she's so trusting of the system and like wanting to see like justice play out in the traditional kind of legal way without being able to understand that the system has failed the Baudelaires to such an extent, like so deeply. But she chooses not to go with them or to like really see that, and so she lets them go. This I don't know like what to even think when I go into this book, because there are so many questions that haven't been answered yet, but that felt like the end. That felt like goodbye, but there's so many questions, and I feel like there's going to be questions like what was in the sugar bowl that we're just not gonna really get an answer to, because the Lemony Snicket guys, like, some secrets like they died with that Dewey guy. Oh, and Dewey is apparently, based on some like comment was made, Dewey Denouement had sunk into the pond, guarding his underwater catalog and all of its secrets and leaving the woman he loved pregnant and distraught. A little bit disappointed. Oh, about that baby not being Olaf's or their parents. It's probably better that the bad guy is screwing around. And I feel like this just is gonna be different. Like, they're with Olaf now. They have kind of come to the conclusion that they want to be good guys, but they've done bad things, even if they've done them for like kind of good reasons. Like, they started the fire in the hotel just so that they could get everybody out and stop Olaf from like releasing this mushroom thing. I never really talked about, I think when I was talking to you, but like it exists. So last night I started to read the last book. Now I'm making tea. And yeah, it feels really different. It's kind of like reminding me of the last season or two of The 100, where you're like reading it or watching it and you're like, huh, okay, this is different, and I'm not sure if I like it, right? So the Baudelaires essentially wash up onto this island, and this island has a cult on it, and Olaf is obviously with them, and they meet him and they're like, who are you guys? And the Baudelaires are like, we're the Baudelaires. And Olaf is like, I am your king. And what makes them different is that this culty group of people immediately see through his bullshit, and they're like, yeah, no, I don't think so. In fact, you're like a liar and a creep, and we don't want that in our community, so you can just clear off.
The Baudelaires are obviously completely relieved that this is the situation now, and they don't have to deal with Olaf. Finally, at last, people are seeing him for who and what he is, a villain. But their sort of leader is named Ishmael, and he's like a real weirdo because he apparently has these injuries on his feet. He can't walk, so he has them in like this therapeutic clay stuff. And he is super controlling, as a cult leader would be. And so people go picking over the stuff that washes up on the side of the beach from shipwrecks, and they bring it to him, and he's like, yes, no, 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 no. Anything from the outside world is just not really welcome. So Klaus, Sunny, and Violet have to like get rid of all their stuff of it so far. It's different. And we knew it was going to be different because it's the last book. There's so many mysteries and things that need to be unpacked. Like the environment feels different. It doesn't feel as like gothic or sinister in the same way. So I'm going to just sit down and try and push through it today. Today will be the end. And that's kind of sad, so I'm gonna start reading. Okay, checking in again. Olaf is in a bird cage. That's where we're at. He came back dressed as Kit Snicket, pretending to be a pregnant woman. Oh my god. And then the real Kit Snicket washes up. So we have Olaf dressed as Kit Snicket. We have Kit Snicket herself. And then we have the children. Oh, and the incredibly deadly viper. They've been kicked out of the cult because they essentially were like, yeah, no, we actually hung on to our hair tie and Klaus's common book, and Sunny had like a spatula or something like that. And so Olaf is punished for his treachery by being put in a bird cage, and then the kids are just abandoned again. I really don't know where this is going. I'm waiting for something to happen. Like I'm waiting for this explanation and I'm just not getting it. And I don't know. I'm really afraid that this is going to end up being a great series, except for the last book, and you just have to pretend that the last book doesn't exist.
Okay, I see something about secrets. This better be it.
Oh, okay. So interesting. There's going to be a schism in the cult. They want Ishmael out. Basically, they are starting to kind of have this awareness that he has been pressuring them to get rid of things that would have made their life a lot better. And they come to the Baudelaires in the night, and they're like, come and help us get weapons from this place that Ishmael has been hoarding all of the things from the outside world. And so they go in, and they find this, essentially a garden of things that have been discarded. And in the center of it is an apple tree. And the snake, the incredibly deadly viper, is there. It slithers towards the tree. It goes into the roots of the tree and shows them this hidden room. The symbolism here, you guys. Like, I'm so interested. What? He has like a whole fondue set in this room. There's like a library. Oh, and they can see his like footsteps, so they can tell that this is like a place that Ishmael comes and enjoys the spoils of the outside world while everybody else lives without it. I think we are finally going to have the mysteries answered, because it seems that Ishmael knew the Baudelaire parents. He says, I've never known a Baudelaire who didn't rock the boat. Attention, 13 books later, turns out I was right. Beatrice is their mother. She is. Okay. We're in the middle of some big drama. They're all dying of some mushroom thing, and they are reading their parents' journals, and it says Beatrice is their mother. That is their father writing, saying Beatrice, talking about his wife. You guys, I can't cope. The deadly viper offers the Baudelaire children an apple. The deadly viper gave them the apple of knowledge because it was infused with horseradish, which is the cure for this mushroom. It's absurd, okay? Go with it. The symbolism, I don't even know if I'm fully appreciating or processing it right now. What? Okay. I'm not just a pervert. I am kind of crying, but I'm also like, Kit and Olaf used to date. Oh, okay, I'm getting all fucked up. I'm getting all emotionally fucked up by this book. I only have a few pages left, but Kit is pregnant. She's giving birth actively, like right now she's giving birth. She's going to have a baby come out, and she is dying. She finds out that Dewey, the father of her child, is dead, and then Olaf comes walking along the beach, and they're like, you need to help Kit. She's gonna give birth, and she's not doing great. Olaf walks over, and he kisses her on the lips. very gently, and he says, "I told you I would do that one more time." This is the first person that we have seen him be even remotely tender towards. And like, still, I think there's a major consent issue there. But like, and also just the symbolism in this book. Ishmael took an apple with him, and then he like discouraged everybody else from eating the apples or drinking like apple cider or like whatever to protect themselves from the spores. So the spores are now like killing them, and he is having them paddle him to the mainland. But we know they're all gonna die, but the deadly viper took an apple and is trying to like take it to them. Deadly viper, also known as ink. There's like so much happening in this book. Kit says to him, "The night has 1,000 eyes, and the day but one, yet the light of a bright world dies with the burning sun. The mind has 1,000 eyes, and the heart but one, yet the light of a whole life dies when love is done." Then Olaf is like, "You're not the only one who can quote." And he says, "Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out early as you can." Here he coughed a ghastly sound, and his hands clutched his chest. "And don't have any kids yourself." Then he dies. There is a chapter 14. Yeah, okay. There is a chapter 14. Oh, it's like a new story. You just start from one, or like from page 1 again. "As we suspected, we are to be castaways once more. The others believe that the island should go stay as far from the treachery of the world, and so this safe place is too dangerous for us. We will leave by a boat B has built and named for me. I am heartbroken, but I have been heartbroken before. And this might be for the best, for which I can hope. We cannot truly shelter our children here or anywhere else, and so it might be best for us and for the baby to immerse ourselves in the world. By the way, if it is a girl, we will name her Violet, and if it is a boy, we will name her Lemony." I have a lot of thoughts, and honestly, I don't know what to do with this board because I feel like there were so many layers to this book series. Like, I am astounded. This series, I still feel like almost in shock from finishing it, so kind of bear with me a little bit here, because for a series that is so focused on riddles and mysteries and solving problems, there are so many questions that are left unanswered, even for the Baudelaires. So I was keeping really detailed note in the very beginning of the book because I wasn't really sure what was going to be relevant and what I was going to be interested in, and I think it is the reptile room. There is a quote that talks about Klaus reflecting back on what happens years later when he's a lot older. And so like for me in my mind, I'm like, okay, they survived, they made it to the mainland fine, but we don't know what happens to them. And that is such a strong theme of the book. This unknown, I mean the great unknown. Oh, I still feel horrible when I think about like quagmires, because like, refresher in case you don't know, Kit says that essentially they were in their like floating house thing, and then the balloons popped or something and they went down, and the beast that is mentioned in the Grim Grotto, oh where's my other? The beast that was seen in the Grim Grotto essentially rose up and seemed to have swallowed them, but they never know what that beast is. We're never actually told. We are just told that it is the great unknown, which is kind of like a metaphor for death, I'm pretty sure. I'm just noticing how beat up this book is as well. I'm wondering if it got thrown at a wall. I could totally see somebody doing that in the best way. But we also don't know who killed their parents in the end, because at the very, they confront Olaf, I think for the first time, saying that like, you killed our parents, and he's like, no I didn't. Then I'm trying to think like, was it Esme, because she had the tunnel that went to their house, so that would make sense. Like, I'm sure there's tons of theories about all of this, and believe me, I am going to go watch hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos as soon as I'm done recording this. But you would just think that because Olaf is like the ultimate mansplainer, that he would at least be like, yes, I killed your parents and I will tell you everything of how I did it, my genius, because I did it successfully. I don't know. I love that he was never really redeemed, but we did get a little bit of depth. We had a like hint of his humanity with Kit, even in the other books a little bit to some extent. There was little hints that he had a past. He at least knows what it's like to be orphaned and to suffer. And I thought that it was really interesting that we introduced an element of grayness, not just to the children, but to their parents, where it seems like they might have killed Olaf's parents and they were not necessarily always noble or like great, good people. Things are not always black and white. There was this quote I just thought was such a punch in the gut. "We are respecting our parents' wishes," Violet said, hoisting the apples as high as she could. "They didn't want to shelter us from the world's treacheries. They wanted us to survive." Ishmael put a hand on the stock pot of the apples. "What do your parents know about surviving?" The cruelest thing that was said to them in this entire book series. But I loved that there is so much in this that was cyclical, that they could see that their parents might have messed up quite a bit in their lives too, but at the very least they were trying. And it feels kind of like maybe Violet, Klaus, and Sunny in raising Kit's baby Beatrice. Still fucking me up. I love like that is almost the ultimate cycle coming around with them adopting Beatrice, where then they have to make the decision that their parents made, that they all kind of came of age at different ages. Like you don't always come of age when you hit 16 or like whatever. Some people come of age when they're really young, like Sunny, and they have to deal with these intensely painful and difficult times. And it forces you to grow up and to become a young woman or a young man, and it forces you to mature early. I think Sunny Baudelaire, by the way, was like my favorite character, partly because a lot of like the adult jokes were kind of hidden away and tucked into her speech and her dialogue, but also because she was almost the least innocent of all of the Baudelaires in some ways. Like she was the most willing to be morally gray and to push things forward and to set fire to the hotel. She had the clarity of mind, yes kitty, of like when things needed to be done and was like willing to make those hard decisions. But another thing I thought was kind of cyclical and interesting was I googled Olaf's last words, poetry that he quotes. It's "This Be the Verse" by Philip Larkin. He puts like the last stanza in there, but the first stanza says, "They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their own turn by fools in old style hats and coats, who half the time are soppy stern, half the time at another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out early as you can and don't have any kids yourself." It's another one of those moments where it's like, there is so much depth to these books and like there's so much to think about that I feel like I'm going to be thinking about them for the rest of my life. These 13 books truly I think were better written than like 99% of the books for adults that I have ever read. They are so timeless. And actually, okay, there is one point, I think it was the Wide Window, where I believe it was Mr. Poe is like, "Fax me," and I was like, oh my god, this really dates the book so much because I have not heard someone talk about fax machines for 20 years. Like, yeah, I think if you haven't read this series but you watch this video anyway, I would still say like, please read it. There's so much that I haven't even talked about or that I didn't even mention in this video. There's like every single sentence has like meaning and there's just layers of stuff in there. I would love to know if the author was a plotter or a pantser. Like how much of this was actually plotted out and how much of it was him kind of going, well, I'll just, sprinkle some sugar bowl stuff over here and we'll see if I pick it up again later. I don't know. I would absolutely read this book series to my children because of the depth of them. Like there's just so many conversations being had from like capitalism, consumerism, how to handle hard things, the importance of education and curiosity, grief. And there's some things that just hit no matter how old you are. If you're like an 8-year-old or if you're a almost 30-year-old, I almost think that some of the stuff hits harder once the world has had a bit of time to fuck you up a little. I don't know. I think that is like one of the greatest gifts to the reader in this book series is that it presents a lot of problems and it asks a lot of questions and it doesn't force an answer on you. It encourages you to come up with answers yourself. Sometimes you just have to have peace that there are no answers, but at least we have each other. I love it so much. This is gonna be one of the best decisions I made this year. I just feel like I'm sitting here being super, super sappy and like, I don't know, cringe about this. Like these books have changed everything for me. Okay. But I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm gonna just keep rambling on and on. But if you've made it to this point in the video, I have no idea how many hours it is already, but thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad that you came along this journey with me. And if you read these books as a kid, I would love to hear what your thoughts were, what your experiences are. Have you reread them? Will you reread them? Yeah, let me know. Oh, actually, let me know if the TV series on Netflix is any good. I've heard that there is a TV series. I wasn't impressed with the movie, but if the TV series is great, please tell me and I will watch that too. Thank you for watching. I will see you again very soon in another video. Bye.